Social media platforms are literally rewiring our brains through sophisticated psychological manipulation, and most of us don't even realize we're part of this massive experiment.
That's such a chilling way to put it. How exactly are they manipulating us?
Well, here's what's fascinating. Every time we get a notification, every comment triggers a flood of dopamine in our brains. It's the exact same chemical response that drives gambling addiction and drug abuse.
So you're telling me my morning Instagram routine is basically the equivalent of pulling a slot machine lever?
Even more concerning than that, neuroscientists have found that excessive social media use actually shrinks the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for self control and rational thinking.
That would explain why I keep checking my phone even when I know I should be focusing on other things.
And here's where it gets really disturbing. These platforms are tracking every single one of those impulses. They monitor how long you pause on posts, what makes you angry, what makes you sad, even how long you hover over content without clicking.
The thought of being watched that closely makes my skin crawl. What exactly are they doing with all that data?
Well, they're creating incredibly detailed psychological profiles. Studies show that with just 300 likes, their AI can predict your behavior better than your spouse can.
That's absolutely terrifying. How is this even legal?
You know what even more concerning? Facebook has actually conducted experiments proving they can alter people's emotional states just by manipulating their news feeds.
So they're not just observing our behavior, they're actively trying to control it?
Exactly. And here's the really sinister part. Negative content and outrage spread 6 times faster than positive content. The algorithms are specifically designed to trigger strong emotional responses, especially negative ones.
That explains why I sometimes find myself doom scrolling through increasingly upsetting content.
And it's not just about keeping us engaged. These platforms have become so sophisticated that they're creating echo chambers where AI powered algorithms only show us information that confirms what we already believe.
Well, that certainly explains the growing political divide we're seeing everywhere.
Precisely, and these echo chambers are making society increasingly polarized and easier to manipulate. The more time we spend in these algorithmic bubbles, the more extreme our views become.
So what can we actually do about this? It feels overwhelming.
There are several concrete steps we can take. First, turn off all notifications. Those little red dots and pings are specifically designed as dopamine triggers. Second, actively curate your feed by unfollowing accounts that consistently trigger negative emotions.
But don't we need to stay informed about important issues?
That's where conscious consumption comes in. Set specific times for social media use, and when you do engage, actively question what you're seeing. Ask yourself, who benefits from this content making me feel this way?
You know, I've never thought about social media that way before, as something that needs to be actively managed.
Think of your attention like a valuable resource, because that's exactly how these companies see it. They're literally monetizing our emotional responses.
So what's your personal strategy for managing all this?
I've implemented what I call the sacred spaces rule. Certain areas and times are completely phone free zones. I also use different accounts for personal and professional purposes to create mental boundaries.
That's really interesting. Have you noticed any changes since implementing these strategies?
The difference has been remarkable. My attention span has improved, I'm sleeping better, and I'm having more meaningful conversations with people instead of just surface level interactions.
These all sound like practical solutions, but what about the bigger picture? How do we address the societal impact?
That's where collective awareness becomes crucial. The more people understand these manipulation techniques, the more pressure we can put on platforms to implement ethical design practices.
So it's not just about individual actions. We need systemic change as well.
Exactly. Until that happens, we need to be vigilant about protecting our mental space. These platforms aren't going away, but we can learn to use them without letting them use us.
I feel like this conversation has completely changed how I'm going to approach social media from now on.
And that's really the key takeaway here. Once you understand the game being played with your mind, you can choose whether and how to play it. Because right now, most of us are just pawns in someone else's chess match.